The notification chime on my phone sounded like a funeral bell at 3 in the afternoon. I was sitting in a conference room in Philadelphia, pretending to care about audio compression algorithms while my colleagues droned on about market penetration strategies. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here I was, Eric Maxwell, senior project manager at Precision Audio Engineering, listening to people talk about reaching audiences when my own wife was about to deliver the performance of her life via text message. "We need some space. I'm going on a retreat for self-discovery. Consider us separated for now. Don't contact me." For now, like putting a dog on a leash and pretending the collar isn't electric. I stared at those 23 words, each one carefully chosen to sound spiritual and enlightened while delivering maximum emotional damage. Vanessa had always been good at packaging her selfishness in yoga speak and wellness buzzwords. I excused myself from the meeting, claiming a family emergency, which wasn't entirely false, and walked to the hotel bar. The bartender, a guy about my age with tired eyes, poured me a whiskey without being asked. Maybe he recognized the look of a man whose world had just shifted sideways. "Rough day?" he asked. "My wife just discovered herself," I said, raising the glass. "Apparently, she discovered herself right out of our marriage." The whiskey burned, but not as much as the realization that I'd seen this coming for months. Vanessa had been working late at her yoga studio, taking mysterious calls in the bathroom, and suddenly developing an interest in business mentorship from Greg Halverson, the owner of a chain of high-end fitness centers. Greg was everything I wasn't, flashy, loud, and convinced that money could buy authenticity. I pulled out my laptop and started making calls. First, Mrs. Rodriguez, our landlord. She'd always liked me more than Vanessa anyway. "Eric, dear, how are you?" "I'm fine, Mrs. Rodriguez, but I need to give you notice on the apartment. Vanessa and I are separating, and I'll be moving out at the end of the month." "Oh, honey, I'm so sorry. She seemed like such a nice girl." Seemed being the operative phrase. I'd learned that Vanessa was very good at seeming. She seemed devoted when she was planning her escape. She seemed spiritual when she was justifying her selfishness. She seemed innocent when she was lying through her teeth. Next, I called the bank. Joint accounts are wonderful things when you're building a life together. They're even more wonderful when you're the only one who remembers the passwords. "I'd like to transfer funds from our joint savings to my individual checking account," I told the representative. "Is your spouse aware of this transaction, Mr. Maxwell?" "She's on a spiritual journey," I said. "I'm sure she'd want me to handle the practical matters." Within an hour, I'd rerouted our mail to a P.O. box, canceled her meal delivery service, and changed the passwords on our streaming accounts. If Vanessa wanted to discover herself, she could do it without my Netflix subscription. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Tommy Chen, a software engineer who'd been warning me about Vanessa's behavior for months. "Dude, I saw V's Instagram story. She's at some fancy spa with a guy who looks like a protein shake commercial. You okay?" I typed back, "She's finding her center. I'm helping her find the door." Tommy called immediately. "Eric, man, are you losing it? What's your plan here?" "Simple," I said, watching the Philadelphia skyline through the hotel window. "She wants to play games? I'll show her what a real game looks like. She thinks she's the chess master, but she's barely playing checkers." "What are you going to do?" "Everything she doesn't expect," I said. "Vanessa's problem is that she thinks I'm the same guy who used to bring her flowers every Friday. She's about to learn that underestimating people is a dangerous hobby." I spent the rest of the evening researching. Social media is a beautiful thing when you're gathering intelligence. Vanessa's yoga instructor friends posted everything online, their schedules, their drama, their opinions about everyone else's business. Her friend Chloe, a Pilates instructor with more opinions than sense, had already posted a cryptic message about supporting friends through transitions. But it was Renata, Vanessa's lawyer friend, who gave me the most useful information. She'd posted a photo from some wellness event, and there was Greg in the background, his arm around a woman who definitely wasn't his wife. The timestamp showed it was from last week, when Vanessa claimed she was visiting her sick aunt in Boston. I screenshot everything, organized it into folders, and started planning. Vanessa thought she was 3 moves ahead, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd forgotten that I spent my days solving complex technical problems and managing difficult clients. I was very good at finding solutions that nobody saw coming. The next morning, I drove back to Jersey City with a clear head and a detailed plan. Vanessa had left me a note on the kitchen counter, written on her fancy yoga studio letterhead. Eric, I hope you can understand that I need to follow my authentic path. Please respect my journey. I crumpled up the note and threw it away. Then I made coffee, sat at my computer, and got to work. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The beauty of living in the age of smart homes is that everything is connected and everything remembers. Our apartment was full of devices that Vanessa had insisted we needed: smart speakers, security cameras, connected thermostats. She'd wanted the convenience of controlling everything with her voice. She never considered that voices could be recorded. I spent my first morning alone reviewing the audio logs from our smart speakers. Most of it was mundane. Vanessa asking for weather updates, playing meditation music, setting timers for her yoga practice. But buried in 3 weeks of data, I found gold. Greg, I can't keep lying to him much longer. Vanessa's voice, clear as day, recorded when she thought I was at work. He's starting to ask questions about my schedule. Greg's voice was harder to make out, but I caught enough. Just stick to the plan, babe. Once you're officially separated, we can be open about everything. My divorce will be final next month. Divorce. So Greg was married too. That added an interesting dimension to the situation. I called Tommy. I need your help with something technical. Legal technical or slightly gray area technical? Completely legal, I said. I just need to organize some audio files and maybe enhance the quality. Tommy arrived an hour later with his laptop and a bag of equipment that looked like it belonged in a recording studio. He was the kind of friend who asked questions after he'd already started helping. Dude, please tell me you're not planning anything crazy, he said, connecting cables to his audio interface. Define crazy, I said. Is it crazy to want people to hear the truth? We spent the afternoon cleaning up the audio files. Tommy's software could isolate voices, remove background noise, and even enhance whispered conversations. By evening, we had crystal-clear recordings of Vanessa and Greg discussing their affair, their plans to move in together, and most importantly, their strategy for making me look unstable. The key is to make him seem unreliable at work, Vanessa had said in one recording. If his boss thinks he's having a breakdown, he'll be too distracted to fight the separation. You're cold, babe, Greg had replied. I like that about you. Cold didn't begin to cover it. Vanessa had been planning to sabotage my career as part of her exit strategy. She wanted to leave me financially and professionally ruined while she rode off into the sunset with her fitness guru. I made copies of everything and stored them in multiple locations. Then I started phase 2 of my plan. Vanessa's yoga world was built on image and reputation. Her clients were wealthy women who paid premium prices for classes with instructors they considered authentic and spiritually advanced. They gossiped constantly, shared everything on social media, and treated their yoga studios like exclusive clubs. I knew all their names, their schedules, and their weaknesses because Vanessa had spent 3 years complaining about them to me. Jennifer was insecure about her marriage. Lisa was competitive about everything. Patricia was obsessed with other people's business. They were perfect for what I had in mind. I created an anonymous email account and sent a carefully worded message to Patricia, the biggest gossip in Vanessa's circle. Thought you should know that one of your yoga instructors is having an affair with a married man. They've been using the studio after hours for their meetings. I have proof if you're interested. Patricia responded within an hour, practically vibrating with curiosity. I sent her a photo of Vanessa and Greg leaving the studio together at midnight, taken by our building's security camera. I'd requested the footage as a security concern, which wasn't technically a lie. Within 24 hours, the rumor mill was spinning at maximum speed. Chloe called me, pretending to be concerned. "Eric, honey, I hope you know that some people are saying terrible things about Vanessa. I'm sure it's all just jealousy." "What kind of things?" I asked, playing the confused husband perfectly. "Well, there are rumors about her and that Greg person. But I told everyone that Vanessa would never do something like that. She's too spiritual." "Greg Halverson? From the fitness centers? You know him?" "Vanessa mentioned he was giving her business advice," I said. "I'm sure that's all it is." Chloe made a sympathetic noise. "Of course, dear. People just love to create drama." By the end of the week, Vanessa's carefully constructed image was developing cracks. Her yoga classes were smaller, and I could see the stress in her social media posts. She was still at her retreat, but her Instagram stories showed her looking increasingly frazzled. Greg wasn't handling the pressure any better. His fitness centers depended on maintaining a wholesome, family-friendly image. Rumors about affairs and home wrecking were exactly the kind of publicity he couldn't afford. I decided it was time to escalate. Vanessa returned from her retreat on a Thursday evening, looking like she'd spent more time in hotel rooms than meditation halls. She'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way, and there were dark circles under her eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. "We need to talk," she said, dropping her designer luggage in the hallway. "About your spiritual journey?" I asked, not looking up from my laptop. "How was the enlightenment? Very enlightening, I hope." She sat across from me at the kitchen table, trying to project calm authority. "Eric, I know this is difficult, but I've made some important realizations about what I need in life." "Such as?" "I need to be with someone who understands my goals, someone who can support my growth as a person and as a businesswoman." "Someone like Greg Halverson?" The color drained from her face. "I don't know what you mean." I opened my laptop and played one of the audio files. Her voice filled the room. "Greg, I can't keep lying to him much longer." Vanessa's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. "You recorded me? In our own home? That's illegal." "Actually, it's not," I said calmly. "These recordings were made by our smart speakers, which we both consented to when we set them up. The devices store audio for quality improvement purposes. I just requested my data." "You're sick," she said, standing up so quickly that her chair fell backward. "This is exactly why I need to get away from you. You're obsessive and controlling." "I'm thorough," I corrected. "There's a difference. For instance, I was thorough enough to discover that your retreat was actually a romantic getaway to the Hamptons. I was thorough enough to find out that Greg is still married. And I was thorough enough to document your plan to sabotage my career." Vanessa's face went through several expressions: denial, anger, calculation. She settled on righteous indignation. "You violated my privacy. No court will accept evidence that was obtained illegally." "We're not going to court," I said. "We're going to have a very public conversation about truth and consequences." She tried a different approach, softening her voice and sitting back down. "Eric, I know you're hurt, but think about what you're doing. We can handle this like adults. We can have an amicable separation." "Like adults," I repeated. "The way adults plan to destroy each other's careers? The way adults lie about spiritual retreats while having affairs?" "It's not what you think." "It's exactly what I think," I interrupted. "You wanted to trade up, and you thought I was too stupid to notice. You underestimated me, Vanessa. That's going to cost you." She left that night, claiming she was staying with Chloe. I knew she was actually going to Greg's place because I'd been monitoring his social media. He'd posted a photo of an expensive bottle of wine with the caption, "Celebrating New Beginnings," and the background showed his distinctive granite countertops. The next morning, I put phase 3 into motion. I'd spent weeks studying Vanessa's social circle, learning their schedules, their favorite restaurants, their weekly routines. I knew that Patricia had lunch every Friday at the same upscale cafe in Manhattan. I knew that Jennifer and Lisa took a Pilates class together on Saturday mornings. I knew that Renata held court at a wine bar every Thursday evening, dispensing legal advice to her friends. I started with Renata because she was the most influential and the most skeptical. If I could convince her, the others would follow. I arrived at the wine bar early and took a seat at the bar where I could see the entrance. When Renata arrived with her usual entourage, I waited until they'd ordered their first round before approaching. "Renata, I'm Eric Maxwell, Vanessa's husband." She looked surprised, but not unwelcoming. "Eric, of course. How are you holding up?" "I've been better," I said, projecting just the right amount of wounded dignity. "I was wondering if I could buy you ladies a drink. I have some things I'd like to clear up about Vanessa and me." They exchanged glances, but curiosity won. I joined their table and spent the next hour telling them a carefully edited version of the truth. I played the role of the confused, hurt husband who just wanted to understand what had gone wrong. "She said she needed space to grow spiritually," I told them, "but then I found out about Greg. I'm not angry, just confused. I thought we were building something together." "Men like Greg are predators," Patricia said, warming to the subject. "They target vulnerable women going through transitions." "Vanessa isn't vulnerable," Jennifer protested. "She's one of the strongest people I know." "Strong people can make weak choices," Renata said thoughtfully. "Eric, what exactly do you know about this relationship?" I pulled out my phone and played a short audio clip, just enough to establish that Vanessa and Greg had been planning their affair for months. "I found this on our home security system. I wasn't looking for it, but when I was reviewing the files for our separation, I heard voices I didn't recognize." The effect was immediate. These women had built their social lives around trust and authenticity. Learning that Vanessa had been lying to all of them while carrying on a secret affair violated their fundamental values. "She told us she was taking time to focus on her spiritual practice," Lisa said, her voice tight with anger. "She said she needed to step back from relationships to find herself." "Maybe she found herself," I said quietly. "Maybe this is who she really is." By the time I left the wine bar, I knew the story would spread through their social circle like wildfire. These women were influencers in their own right, with large social media followings and extensive networks. When they talked, people listened. I went home and waited for the consequences to unfold. The social media storm began on Saturday morning. It started with subtle posts, quotes about authenticity and trust, photos with captions about supporting real friends, pointed references to people who wear masks. By Sunday, it had escalated to direct confrontation. Jennifer posted a long Instagram story about fake spiritual teachers who use wellness culture to justify selfish behavior. Patricia shared an article about affairs in the yoga community with the comment, "Some people teach flexibility in all the wrong ways." Even Chloe, who usually avoided conflict, posted a cryptic message about truth coming to light. Vanessa tried to fight back, posting her own messages about negative energy and people who can't understand authentic growth. But her usual supporters weren't engaging. Her comment sections were full of pointed questions and barely veiled accusations. Greg was facing his own crisis. His fitness centers marketed themselves as family-friendly environments that promoted healthy relationships and positive values. Photos of him with a married woman at romantic locations didn't align with that brand image. I was monitoring the situation from my apartment, feeling like a general watching a battle unfold, when my phone rang. It was Mr. Duffy, my boss at Precision Audio Engineering. "Eric, I need you to come in today. We have a situation." My stomach dropped. "What kind of situation?" "Someone sent an email to HR claiming that you've been unstable at work, missing meetings, behaving erratically. They suggested we should be concerned about your mental health. I closed my eyes. Vanessa was making her move, trying to sabotage my career just as she'd planned. Mr. Duffy, I can explain. I'm sure you can. Come in at 2 o'clock. Bring whatever documentation you think might be relevant. I spent the morning preparing my defense. I printed email logs showing my consistent performance, client testimonials, project completion records, but my best evidence was the audio recordings that revealed Vanessa's plan to make me look unstable at work. The meeting was held in Mr. Duffy's office with Janet from HR present. They looked serious but not hostile, which I took as a good sign. Eric, Mr. Duffy began, we received an email from someone claiming to be concerned about your welfare. They said you've been acting strangely, that your personal problems are affecting your work performance. Who sent the email? I asked. Janet consulted her notes. It came from an anonymous account, but the sender claimed to be a close friend who was worried about you. I pulled out my laptop. I think I know who sent it, and I can prove that it's part of a coordinated campaign to damage my reputation. I played the audio recording where Vanessa and Greg discussed their plan to make me seem unreliable at work. Mr. Duffy's eyebrows rose higher with each word. This is your wife? He asked when the recording ended. Soon-to-be ex-wife, I said. She's been having an affair, and this is her strategy for ensuring I can't fight the divorce settlement. Janet was taking notes furiously. Eric, how did you obtain these recordings? I explained about the smart speakers and our home security system. Everything had been recorded legally, with both our consent to the device's terms of service. Mr. Duffy leaned back in his chair. Eric, your work has been exemplary for 5 years. You've never given us any reason to question your stability or professionalism. This appears to be a personal attack designed to harm your career. What happens now? I asked. Now we document this conversation and continue to evaluate your performance based on your actual work, not anonymous accusations, Janet said. If you receive any more harassment related to your employment, let us know immediately. I left the office feeling vindicated, but also more determined than ever to escalate my campaign against Vanessa and Greg. They'd tried to destroy my livelihood, which meant all bets were off. That evening, I called Tommy. I need to take this to the next level. What did you have in mind? Greg's hosting a wellness event at his flagship gym next weekend. It's supposed to be about authentic living and honest relationships. I think his audience deserves to hear some authentic honesty. Tommy was quiet for a moment. Eric, are you sure about this? Once you go public, there's no taking it back. They already went public when they tried to destroy my career, I said. I'm just evening the score. We spent the next week preparing. Tommy helped me create a presentation that looked professional and legitimate. Slides about communication in relationships, the importance of honesty, the dangers of deception. Hidden within the presentation were audio clips and photographic evidence of Vanessa and Greg's affair. The wellness event was held on a Saturday afternoon in Greg's largest gym. About 200 people attended. Fitness enthusiasts, yoga practitioners, couples looking for relationship advice. Vanessa was there, sitting in the front row like a supportive partner. I arrived early and blended into the crowd. Greg took the stage looking confident and polished, wearing an expensive suit that probably cost more than I made in a month. Welcome everyone to our workshop on authentic living, he began. Today we're going to talk about the courage it takes to live honestly, to make difficult choices, and to prioritize our genuine needs over social expectations. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Greg spoke for about 20 minutes about integrity and authenticity, occasionally gesturing toward Vanessa as an example of someone who'd had the courage to follow her truth. The audience was eating it up, nodding along with his platitudes about honest communication and genuine relationships. Then I made my move. I'd spent days studying the gym's audiovisual system, learning how to connect to their wireless network and access their presentation equipment. When Greg paused to take questions from the audience, I triggered my prepared presentation. The first slide appeared on the large screens around the gym. The truth about authentic living. Greg looked confused. "I'm sorry. There seems to be a technical issue." The second slide contained a photo of him and Vanessa at a romantic restaurant, time-stamped from when she was supposedly on her spiritual retreat. The third slide was an audio waveform with a play button. I clicked play, and Vanessa's voice filled the gym through the sound system. "Greg, I can't keep lying to him much longer. He's starting to ask questions about my schedule." The audience went silent. Greg was frantically trying to shut down the presentation, but I'd locked him out of the system. More slides followed, photos, text messages, audio recordings. The evidence painted a clear picture of deception, manipulation, and betrayal. The audience watched in stunned silence as their authentic living guru was exposed as a fraud. Vanessa tried to run, but the crowd blocked her path. People were pulling out their phones, recording everything, posting it to social media in real time. Greg was shouting about privacy violations and illegal recordings, but his protests only made him look more guilty. The final slide was simple text. "Authentic living means facing the consequences of your choices." I slipped out during the chaos, leaving Greg and Vanessa to deal with the aftermath. By the time I got home, videos of the event were already going viral on social media. The hashtag #AuthenticGreg was trending, and not in a good way. My phone was buzzing with messages from Tommy, from coworkers, from people I barely knew who'd seen the videos online. But the message that mattered most came from Mr. Duffy. "Saw the news. Hope you're okay. Take Monday off if you need it." I poured myself a whiskey and sat on my balcony, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness. Vanessa and Greg had wanted to play games with my life, my career, my reputation. Now they were learning that some games have consequences they never considered. But I wasn't finished yet. This was just the beginning. The viral video from Greg's wellness event had been viewed over 2 million times by Monday morning. Local news stations picked up the story, running segments about authenticity in the fitness industry and social media justice. Greg's gym chain was facing a public relations nightmare, with protesters outside his locations and membership cancellations flooding in. Vanessa had gone into hiding, staying at Greg's penthouse apartment while the storm raged around them. But I knew they wouldn't stay passive for long. Desperate people make desperate choices, and I'd learned to anticipate Vanessa's patterns over 7 years of marriage. She proved me right on Tuesday evening. I was working late at my laptop when my phone buzzed with a security alert from our apartment building. Someone had used the emergency access code to enter our floor. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m., and the security camera captured 2 figures in dark clothing and baseball caps. I'd been expecting this. Vanessa still had keys to our apartment, and she knew where I kept important documents, financial records, and personal files. She and Greg were probably hoping to find something they could use against me, evidence of my surveillance activities, financial information they could use in divorce proceedings, or anything that might shift the narrative back in their favor. What they didn't know was that I'd spent the past week turning our apartment into a controlled environment designed to capture exactly this kind of behavior. I'd installed additional security cameras in every room, hidden but perfectly legal since it was my residence. I'd set up motion sensors connected to my phone so I'd know the moment anyone entered. Most importantly, I'd prepared a few surprises that would make their breaking and entering attempt memorable. My phone showed they were in the hallway outside our door. I activated the live stream feature on all my cameras and started recording. Then I called Tommy. "They're here," I said quietly. "Are you ready with the broadcast?" "Stream is live and recording," Tommy confirmed. "Audio and video quality are perfect. You sure about this?" "They chose to escalate," I said. "I'm just documenting their choices." I watched on my phone as Vanessa and Greg entered the apartment. They moved carefully, using phone flashlights instead of turning on the main lights. Vanessa went straight to my home office while Greg searched the living room. Find anything? Greg whispered, his voice clearly picked up by the hidden microphones. He's moved everything, Vanessa replied, rifling through my desk drawers. All the financial documents are gone. What about his computer? Password protected, but maybe... She pulled out a USB drive. I can copy his hard drive and crack it later. That was when I triggered the first surprise. I'd rigged our smart home system to play a pre-recorded message through all the speakers when I sent a specific command. My voice suddenly filled the apartment at moderate volume, loud enough to startle them, but not loud enough to wake the neighbors. Welcome to my home, Vanessa and Greg. I hope you're enjoying your visit. Please make yourselves comfortable while I call building security. They froze like deer in headlights. The cameras captured their faces perfectly. Guilt, fear, and the dawning realization that they'd walked into a trap. We need to get out of here, Greg said, but Vanessa was still focused on my computer. Wait, I almost have... That's when I triggered surprise number 2. I'd installed a modified sprinkler system connected to my home automation network. Instead of water, it was loaded with biodegradable glitter and a harmless but pungent scent spray that smelled like a combination of rotten eggs and gym socks. The system activated with a soft hiss, covering both of them in sparkly, stinking evidence of their break-in. The cameras captured their reactions perfectly. Greg cursed and stumbled backward, slipping on the glittery floor. Vanessa screamed and tried to cover her face, but the spray had already coated her hair and clothes. What the hell is this? Greg shouted, wiping glitter from his eyes. It's a home security system, my recorded voice replied through the speakers. Smile for the cameras, you're live on the internet. That last part was a bluff. The stream was going to Tommy's private server, not to a public platform. But they didn't know that. Vanessa was crying now, streaks of mascara mixing with glitter on her cheeks. Eric, please, we can work this out. We just needed to get some of my things. Your things are in storage, my voice replied. What you're doing is called breaking and entering. The police have been notified. Another bluff, but an effective one. Greg grabbed Vanessa's arm and pulled her toward the door. Come on, we're leaving. Now. They stumbled out of the apartment, leaving a trail of glitter and stench behind them. The hallway cameras captured their exit. 2 figures covered in sparkles, reeking like a garbage dump, trying to maintain some dignity as they fled the scene. I called Tommy. Did you get everything? Every second, he said, laughing. This is better than reality TV. What are you going to do with the footage? Nothing yet, I said. But I have a feeling I'll need it soon. I was right. The next morning, I received a certified letter from a law firm representing both Vanessa and Greg. They were threatening to sue me for harassment, invasion of privacy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. The letter demanded that I cease all stalking behavior and remove any recordings or photographs from social media. I forwarded the letter to my own attorney, along with the security footage from their break-in attempt. My lawyer called me an hour later. Eric, this is fascinating, she said. They're threatening to sue you for documenting their criminal behavior in your own home. I've seen some bold legal strategies, but this is remarkable. What should I do? Nothing. Let them file their lawsuit. We'll respond with a countersuit for breaking and entering, attempted theft, and harassment. The security footage makes your case airtight. But Greg and Vanessa weren't finished. If they couldn't intimidate me legally, they were going to try a more direct approach. That became clear on Friday evening when I found Greg waiting in the parking garage of my building. He was standing next to his expensive sports car, trying to look menacing despite the fact that he still had traces of glitter in his hair. We need to talk, he said as I approached my car. I don't think we do, I replied, keeping my distance and making sure my phone was recording. You've had your fun, Maxwell. You've embarrassed us, cost me money, ruined Vanessa's reputation. Enough is enough. You ruined your own reputations, I said calmly. I just made sure people could see who you really are. Greg stepped closer, trying to use his height advantage to intimidate me. You think you're clever, but you're just a pathetic little man who can't accept that his wife found someone better. Better? I laughed. Greg, you're a walking midlife crisis with a gym membership. You're not better than anyone, you're just louder. His face turned red. You want to keep playing games? Fine. But remember, I know where you work, where you live, who your friends are. I can make your life very difficult. Is that a threat? I asked, making sure my phone was capturing his words clearly. It's a promise. That's when I triggered my final surprise of the evening. I'd been expecting this confrontation, so I'd prepared for it. Hidden in my jacket pocket was a small remote control connected to a device I'd placed under Greg's car earlier that day. It wasn't dangerous or illegal, just a small speaker system loaded with a very special audio file. I pressed the button, and Greg's own voice began playing from underneath his car. The key is to make him seem unreliable at work. If his boss thinks he's having a breakdown, he'll be too distracted to fight the separation. Greg's eyes widened as he recognized his own words. The audio continued, playing his conversation with Vanessa about their plans to destroy my career and reputation. You recorded us? He said, backing away from the car. You recorded yourselves, I corrected. I just made sure the recording found its way to the right audience. Other residents of the building had started to gather, drawn by the sound of voices echoing through the parking garage. They were hearing Greg's own words, his own admission of conspiracy and manipulation. Greg tried to find the speaker to shut it off, crawling under his car while his designer suit got dirty on the concrete floor. The growing audience watched with amusement as the fitness guru groveled in the parking garage, covered in dust and motor oil, trying to silence his own voice. When the recording ended, I addressed the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like you to meet Greg Halverson, authentic living expert and my wife's business mentor. As you can hear, he's very committed to honest communication. Greg emerged from under his car, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You're going to pay for this, Maxwell, I promise you that. Send me a bill, I said, getting into my car. I'm sure it'll be very authentic. As I drove away, I could see Greg in my rearview mirror, still standing next to his car, surrounded by neighbors who were recording him with their phones. By tomorrow, there would be another viral video making the rounds. But I knew this wasn't over. Greg and Vanessa were getting desperate, and desperate people make dangerous choices. I needed to be ready for whatever they tried next. The lawsuit arrived on Monday morning, delivered by a courier who looked apologetic about the whole thing. Vanessa and Greg were suing me for $2 million, claiming harassment, defamation, invasion of privacy, and something called intentional interference with business relationships. I called my lawyer immediately. They're serious about this, I told her. So are we, she replied. I've been reviewing all your evidence, and Eric, you have the strongest defense I've seen in 20 years of practice. They recorded themselves committing crimes and planning to destroy your career. They broke into your home. They threatened you in front of witnesses. If they want to go to court, we'll give them a court case they'll never forget. The preliminary hearing was scheduled for the following Friday. In the meantime, the media attention was intensifying. Local news stations were calling it the Wellness Wars, and social media was having a field day with hashtags like Dark Authentic Greg and Dark or Yoga Scam. Greg's fitness centers were hemorrhaging money. 3 locations had closed permanently, and the remaining gyms were operating at less than 20% capacity. His business partner had filed her own lawsuit, claiming that Greg's personal conduct had destroyed their company. Vanessa's yoga career was similarly destroyed. Her studio had terminated her contract, and none of the other high-end wellness centers in the city would hire her. She'd tried starting her own online classes, but the comments sections were brutal. They were both desperate, which made them dangerous. On Thursday evening, the night before our court hearing, I was working late at the office when building security called. Mr. Maxwell, there are 2 people here demanding to see you. They say it's urgent. What do they look like? A man and woman, both agitated. The woman is crying. Vanessa and Greg. I'd been expecting this. One final attempt to intimidate me before we faced each other in court. Send them up, I said, but stay close to the elevators in case I need help. They arrived at my office looking like refugees from their former lives. Greg's expensive clothes were wrinkled and stained. Vanessa's hair was unwashed, and her makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Eric, please, Vanessa said before they'd even sat down. We need to end this. It's destroying all of us. You started this, I reminded her. You wanted a separation, remember? You wanted to follow your authentic path. I made mistakes, she said, tears streaming down her face. I know that now, but what you're doing is cruel. You're ruining our lives over a relationship that was never going to last anyway. Greg looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Look, Maxwell, maybe we can work out some kind of deal. You drop the countersuit, we drop our lawsuit, everyone moves on. What kind of deal? I asked. You get the apartment, the car, whatever assets you want from the marriage, Vanessa said. I'll sign whatever papers you need. Just stop this campaign against us. I leaned back in my chair, studying their faces. They were broken, defeated, desperate. A year ago, I might have felt sorry for them, but they'd tried to destroy my career, my reputation, my entire life. Sympathy was a luxury I couldn't afford. Here's my counteroffer, I said. Tomorrow in court, you're going to tell the truth, all of it. The affair, the planning, the attempt to sabotage my career, the break-in. You're going to admit that everything I've done has been in response to your actions. We can't do that, Greg said. It would be admitting to crimes. You did commit crimes, I pointed out. I'm just asking you to be authentic about it. Isn't that what you teach, Greg? Authentic living? Vanessa was sobbing now, her carefully constructed image completely shattered. Eric, I loved you once. Doesn't that mean anything? It meant everything, I said quietly. That's why this hurts so much. You didn't just leave me, Vanessa. You tried to destroy me on your way out. You wanted me to lose my job, my home, my reputation. You wanted me to have nothing while you rode off into the sunset with your fitness guru. We never meant for it to go this far. Yes, you did, I interrupted. You recorded yourselves planning it. There's no ambiguity here, no room for interpretation. You wanted to ruin me, and you almost succeeded. Greg stood up, his face flushed with anger. Fine. You want to play hardball? Tomorrow in court, we're going to tell everyone about your obsessive behavior, your illegal surveillance, your harassment campaign. We're going to make you look like a stalker. Good luck with that, I said. The judge will be very interested in your definition of stalking, especially when it involves documenting crimes committed in my own home. They left without another word, and I knew that tomorrow's hearing was going to be brutal. The courtroom was packed. Word had spread through social media, and the gallery was filled with reporters, bloggers, and curious spectators who'd been following the story online. Vanessa and Greg sat at the plaintiff's table with their lawyer, a nervous-looking man who kept checking his phone. My attorney was calm and confident. Are you ready for this? She asked. I've been ready for months, I said. The hearing began with opening statements. Greg and Vanessa's lawyer painted me as an obsessive, controlling husband who couldn't accept his marriage was over. He claimed I'd engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment and humiliation designed to destroy their reputations and businesses. My lawyer's opening was simpler. Your Honor, this case is about consequences. The plaintiffs engaged in adultery, conspiracy, and criminal behavior. The defendant simply documented their actions and allowed the truth to speak for itself. Then came the evidence. We played the audio recordings of Vanessa and Greg planning their affair and discussing their strategy to make me look unstable at work. We showed the security footage of their break-in attempt. We presented documentation of their threats and harassment. With each piece of evidence, I watched Vanessa and Greg sink lower in their chairs. Their lawyer was frantically taking notes. probably realizing that his clients had lied to him about the facts of the case. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, listened to everything with growing incredulity. When we finished presenting our evidence, she turned to the plaintiff's table. "Counselor, does your client have any response to these recordings?" Greg and Vanessa's lawyer whispered urgently with his clients, then stood up. "Your Honor, we'd like to request a recess to discuss a possible settlement." "Denied," the judge said firmly. "Your clients filed this lawsuit claiming harassment and defamation. They've had months to prepare their case. I want to hear their testimony now." What followed was the most satisfying hour of my life. Vanessa took the stand first, trying to maintain her victim narrative even as the evidence contradicted every word she spoke. Under cross-examination, she was forced to admit to the affair, the planning, and the break-in attempt. Her story fell apart completely when my lawyer played the recording of her discussing her plan to sabotage my career. Greg was even worse. He tried to play the role of the innocent businessman who'd been seduced by a manipulative woman, but the audio recordings proved he'd been an active participant in every aspect of their scheme. When my lawyer asked him to explain his threats in the parking garage, he actually tried to claim he'd been misunderstood. "Mr. Halverson," the judge interrupted, "we have video evidence of you making these statements. Are you claiming the recording is inaccurate?" Greg's face turned red. "Your Honor, I was under a lot of stress." "That's not what I asked you. Did you or did you not threaten the defendant?" Yes, Your Honor, but thank you. Please step down." The judge didn't even recess to consider her ruling. "This is one of the most frivolous lawsuits I've seen in 30 years on the bench," she said. "The plaintiffs have admitted to adultery, conspiracy, breaking and entering, and making threats. They've provided no credible evidence of harassment or defamation by the defendant. Their lawsuit is dismissed with prejudice, and I'm awarding attorney's fees to the defendant." She turned to Vanessa and Greg. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney's office for possible criminal prosecution. You're both fortunate that Mr. Maxwell has chosen to handle this as a civil matter rather than pressing charges." As we left the courthouse, reporters surrounded us with cameras and microphones. Greg tried to push through the crowd, but someone shouted a question that stopped him in his tracks. "Mr. Halverson, do you have any comment about the authentic living workshop you're hosting next week?" Greg turned around, confused. "I'm not hosting any workshops. My business is—" "According to your website, you're presenting Learning from Mistakes, a Journey to Real Authenticity this Saturday at the Community Center." I smiled. Tommy had been busy while we were in court, creating a fake event listing that would draw Greg's former clients and critics to a very public venue where they could express their opinions about his authentic living philosophy. "That's not real," Greg said desperately. "I never scheduled that event." "So you're saying your website is lying?" another reporter asked. "Is that part of your authentic living approach?" Greg looked around wildly, realizing he was trapped in another impossible situation. Any answer he gave would make him look worse. Vanessa grabbed his arm. "Let's go. Just, let's go." They pushed through the crowd toward the parking garage, leaving behind a trail of questions and camera flashes. I watched them disappear into the darkness, two people who'd tried to destroy my life and ended up destroying their own. "How do you feel?" my lawyer asked as we walked to our car. "Authentic," I said. "For the first time in months, I feel completely authentic." The story made national news that evening. Cable networks ran segments about social media justice and the dangers of living fake lives in the digital age. Greg and Vanessa became cautionary tales, examples of what happens when people try to build their happiness on other people's misery. I went home to my empty apartment and poured myself a whiskey. Tomorrow I would start rebuilding my life, finding a new place to live, maybe even dating again someday. But tonight, I just wanted to sit quietly and appreciate the silence. My phone buzzed with a text from Tommy. "Dude, you're trending on 3 platforms. Authentic Eric is the new authentic Greg. I turned off my phone and sat on my balcony, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere out there, Vanessa and Greg were probably planning their next moves, figuring out how to rebuild their shattered lives. I hoped they'd learned something from this experience, but I wasn't optimistic. Some people never learn that actions have consequences. They just get better at hiding their true nature until someone like me comes along and turns on the lights. I raised my glass to the night sky. Here's to authentic living, I said aloud. May everyone get exactly what they deserve. The city sparkled back at me, full of possibilities and new beginnings. For the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be.